Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 39 in the Cobra Jet project, also known as Slither. Now in the last video, I was trying to get a lot of stuff done on the bottom of the car in preparation for seam sealer and primers and paints and all that sort of thing, and I had a rough week last week. I did not get much done. I injured my back. This week I've been a little bit better. I've been trying to get more done and trying to get caught up on that process. Now, I'm still not completely done where I need to be, and I'm going to show you what I have going on and where I'm at with the process. But also, I'm going to do a little video of some packaging that arrived. So take a look at that, and then I'll get back to you. Might have been easier if he just backed in. But what do I know? Got one open?
The top one's open.
Okay.
And that one actually has a hole right there on the side.
See that. Well, I don't think that one's going to be a problem, but we know which.
You stand it up.
A lot of stuff.
Loose things over in this one.
Oh man, that's not good.
You got it?
Yeah. Well, that's what I end up with. I've got this whole end of the box is just busted open. So I'm gonna have to go through all the pieces and parts, figure out what's here and what may not be here. So this box, it has a hole in it, but I don't think that's anything to be concerned about. I don't see that being a problem. But this one, I don't know. It's hard to say what is missing, if anything. Oh boy. I'm disappointed. Usually UPS does a better job of not mangling these boxes, so. Well, there's one control arm. Two. One shock absorber. One shock absorber. Another lower control arm. Another lower control arm, that's good. So we're 4 for 4 on control arms. This is adjustable strut rods, so that's good. Got a pair of those. Got the drag link. Okay. And that should be the front sway bar, 1.125". I don't need to open that. The box isn't destroyed, so that's all there is out of that box. Okay, so, all right, this one's got a lot more stuff in it. That's good. That's a good sign. So, spring shackle kit. Spring shackle kit. That's good. Borgeson pressure and return hose. There's a tie rod end. 2 tie rod ends. That should be, these are the inners. There's an outer tie rod end. There is a mount for the coil spring. Another mount for the coil spring. The other tie rod end. Idler arm. We've got the pitman arm, which I thought I already had that. Oh no, that goes to the steering box. Sorry. Yeah, pitman arm to the steering box. Drag joint. Some gaskets. Oh, these are for the coil spring insulators. Good. There is. Oh no, that's a. Oh, sorry, that's a master kit. That's all of the hardware. Awesome. Master chassis kit. That's what that is. Sorry. Additional parts inside. Let's see here. Oh, adjustment sleeve for the tie rods. There's 2 of those. And these should be the bolts for the rear, the release spring mounts in the front. And I think this is something for me. Look at that. Got a shirt from Kentucky Mustang. Awesome. Looks like an air freshener. Some stickers, business card, and I'm going to say that in this box is the Borgeson. Well, let's find out. Okay, so there's the steering box. I don't see a pump. I don't think there's a pump in there. It's all mounting. Yeah, that's just, yeah. So that's just the steering box. I don't know if I ordered a steering pump, to be honest. So I'll have to look at the list to verify that it's not missing. But there's the steering box, so we're good on that. Yeah, I'll have to find my master list to make sure that I'm not missing a steering box. Or a steering pump, I should say. Power steering pump. Cool. Okay, so the parts arrived for the suspension and the steering, and that came from Kentucky Mustang. And it all looks really good. I'm very happy with it. I'm looking forward to getting it into the car once I get it off of the rotisserie. Now what I have been doing is grinding and grinding and grinding. I've knocked down even more welds. I decided to do the ones on the inside that I hadn't got to. I've gone around and welded up a few spots. I'm not going to bore you with what would be hours and hours of me grinding on this car. Now I do have some time-lapse sequences that I'll put in here, but just know that there was a lot to do, and I guess I really didn't think about it too much because my goal was the underside of the car, right? But then I really started thinking about it a little more. I have to take care of the top side as well, because once I get undercoating on there, or paint or primer or whatever, and I come back and I grind those welds on the top side, I could easily burn through with the heat and cause a problem on the bottom side. So I kind of have to take care of both sides at the same time. Along with that, I had to address parts in the engine bay. You know, the paints, the epoxy and the primer and all that stuff, it's going to have to go just about everywhere. Now, I do have a specific kit that Charles wanted me to use to do the engine bay, and I can't isolate everything completely. You know, whenever I have it ready to paint the engine bay, I also have to have the underside ready. So it's as I've said in many times when I do this stuff, sequence is scored. And that means there's a rhythm to this, right? So you start doing one process, but you have to make sure all the other processes are taken care of before you get to that point. So let me show you where I'm at right now, and I'm going to keep working on it, and we'll see how far I can get done during the week. Alright, so initially I had thought about just going over the weld through primer that was on this car or on the bottom of the car, but I don't want to do that. I'm a little concerned that spraying epoxy on top of weld through primer may not be the best answer. So what I did is I started stripping things down with the surface conditioning tool, the one I got from Harbor Freight, and now you can see this is all actually bare metal. There's a few spots here where there is weld through primer, and this took a lot of time. This really took a lot of time, but I still have more to do. I'm not completely done yet, and I used up most of the wheel that I had for doing this. So I had to order another one. I picked it up from Amazon, and I'll show you that in just a second. But yeah, I'm making progress, but there's still more to do. Alright, this is the surface conditioning tool that I've been using from Harbor Freight. This is one of the wheels that came with it originally, and here is a replacement wheel that I got, and you can see how much that is worn down in usage. Now, I did do some stripping of this, or use this on the hood when I first got it, and also on one of the doors just to see what was messed up on it. So that has done a pretty good job. The problem we run into is these corners round off, which, you know, you can't do anything about that. And of course this will wear down, and again, eventually you run out of area to work with. So that's the brand. I haven't tried it yet, so I'm assuming it's good to go. Also, I've been using the 4.5 inch grinder, and not the sanding disc so much. I've done that on the welds, but I've had a couple of these like polycarbide abrasive wheel. I think they call them gator wheels. And I ordered some of these off of Amazon, and I just realized that they're 4 inch instead of 4.5 inch. So I'll probably just use them anyway. They're fairly cheap, and we'll see how that goes. They have the same size arbor, but these are the 4.5 inch from Harbor Freight. I don't know what to expect out of these, but I'm sure I'll consume these up, and then I'll know for sure. The other thing is I'm trying to do as much prep work, as I said, up front here. So I've been stripping off the EDP coating, again, from the frame rails. A lot of this stuff came off with just a wire wheel. Barely hit it, and it just flaked right off. So you might want to keep that in mind if you're ever doing one of these. The hard part will be getting these areas all cleaned up, but I have to do that, and of course the remainder in this front section. Otherwise, I'd already stripped the front apron, and these had been media blasted, so I'll have to just go over those, make sure everything's cleaned up. Back here, I also did the welding that I talked about on the seam for the mini tub. Again, just kind of a random spacing there. I finished welding in this bottom edge, or this, let's say, not bottom edge, this seam. Made sure everything was nice and tight. Now, also, I had mentioned, I think in a previous video, about maybe cutting down this. I was worried about how wide this was, but I measured the original quarters that were on this car, and those are the same dimension. So it was actually that wide, 1.25 inches. That's what the original ones were. So I'm just going to leave those alone. I did clean up some of the edges where it stuck out more, and I will have to do that on this opposite side as well. So I'm going to continue stripping off the rest of this stuff and see how close I can get to being ready for epoxy. Now the sequence on this, I had thought about doing a seam sealer, but I looked at the instructions on the seam sealer and it said it is not corrosion resistant if it's applied to bare metal. So what that tells me is I need to go ahead and epoxy all of this and then apply the seam sealer. So as I was saying before, with the engine bay and all that stuff, I have to find a brake line. Now normally what people do is they'll draw or tape off the upper half of the firewall so that when you paint that, it's separate. Like this will have one layer or one let's say grouping of color or paint or whatever, and then the engine bay will have its own. But along with that, I have to consider, where do I stop here? And I'm still trying to figure out how I want to do that. Because if I just draw a line and come straight down, well, that's not going to help me, because it still has to have all this prepped and ready to go. So I'm working on that right now. I'll probably look at some other videos just to see what's out there and what people are doing, but that's where I'm at. Well, I've made good progress stripping everything off that I can, and I ran into a little bit of a snag. As you can see, I have a back seat in the car that is from my Mach 1. These are also the side panels from my car. I was looking at the original car that I have and realized that these brackets need to be installed. And the reason I was wanting to take care of that was because once I have undercoating and everything on the car, I don't need to weld anymore. So if I weld, I'm going to damage that undercoating. So I have to place these. Now, this could be a little tricky because the Detroit Speed mini tubs are not user friendly at this point, and I'll have to show you that and why. Also, I have to attach these, and these apparently go right back here in this area. I don't know if I'm pointing in the right spot. And the seat, I think they go this way. Yeah, the seat slides under and hooks onto these. So I can show you that in just a second. Also, there are some other pieces that go in the front section here. These pieces. And they apparently go underneath the seat as well. Let me show you on the original car so that you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so we'll take a look at this car. Again, this one's not been cut up or molested at all. So there is that little triangle shaped piece or wedge. So that's going to hold the front of the seat. There's that piece that holds the back part of the seat. And then the side pieces that create the stops for the other the side panels. Now, one other thing that I have to think about is this car at least has that bracket there, and this was provided in that kit. So it appears this is to represent that bracket. It's a little bit different design. You can also see the terrible welds that they did way back when on these. The problem I'm going to run into is this car, of course this car does not have mini tubs. The new car does. So if you see this piece, which is the side support for that panel, it has to come back and interact. And there's a tab right here that is welded to the floor, and that is almost in line with that seatbelt mount. Now, when I did the modifications for the Detroit Speed, I moved this because the tub came over and took away part of that frame, and so I had to move that inboard to make the seatbelt work. So let me show you the conflict now. Alright, so this is that little where that wedge is going to go, somewhere in that area there. And of course the hook goes up here. Now there's a little indent in this panel for that hook, so I know where that goes now. But as I mentioned, I had to move this over because it was up inside where this goes. Now this piece, I looked at Boyce Customs, and on their video he pointed out this is about 7 inches from here to here. I measured the original car and I got 6 3/4 at the front, but it was closer to 7 on the back. The problem I run into is with this, I can't bring this over now because the mini tub takes up some of that space. So either I have to modify this, cut this piece off, this corner all together, or flip it over and bring it over on the inside. These are designed, they've got a shape that's side to side. So if this is here, you see these tabs where they go. I don't know if it would really make it, well, I guess it would. There's humps right here that would conflict with the side panel. So it has to go this way. What I'll have to do is either cut that off and flip it over, or just remove it and just weld it directly back there. So I'm gonna have to do some test fitting, and this is gonna delay the process of getting the undercoating on. Hopefully I can get some of this taken care of, and I can still get some of the epoxy on this car by tomorrow, but yeah, I'm kind of fighting with it at the moment. So here I have the side panel just set in place, and of course somebody has butchered these, and I can't do anything about that now, so I may end up putting speakers in there just like they had planned, but this piece is meant to go inside of that, and you can see where that hole is and where the edge of this needs to be. So I'm gonna have to fight with that. Now also, from my understanding, is this bracket is meant to go in if you have a fold down rear seat. I think is what it's intended for. This car doesn't have that, so I don't know that I need to put this in. I may do it anyway just because, but yeah. And the other thing I have to fight with is those two pieces. So let me show you those. Okay, so these sit on top of the mini tubs, or they sat on the wheel houses. I'm not sure which way they went exactly. I think like that. Well, we can go look at the other car. Now the problem I'm going to run into is if this, I think that's the driver's side one based on the shape of it. If that is meant to be there and it's meant to be a certain distance from side to side, that doesn't help me at all, because the mini tubs changed all that. So I don't even think I want to put those pieces on the car. I don't think it'll work. So I'm going to mess around with these other pieces and see if I can't get them in place. Okay, I have a couple things to show you on this. I took the flange and I cut it down to fit around the wheelhouse. So I think it's going to work fine. This will go back. It's got that tab inside of there that's going to, right there, that's going to hit the pinch flange for the torque box. So once I get that set, the bracket that goes on the floor pan, I measured on the original car, it's 18 1/4 inches from the inside to the center line of that. So I'll replicate that on both sides. The hook is going to end up right here. And I think, you know, if you set it too low, it could be a problem, so I might bring it up just a little. Not up here, obviously, but keep it somewhere in that range. And then, what I do is this bracket, it has to sit basically up tight against this mini tub. There's no variation. I can't move it anywhere else. Basically, the center line of this hole, or these two holes, I measured to the edge, the inboard edge of the shock mount, and I got 13 1/4 inches. So that, believe it or not, puts it right up against the mini tub, and it doesn't sit, as you would think, like perfectly flat. It actually has a little bit of an angle to it. So what I did is I used this board, and I got my dimension from the edge of the tub here, or the edge of the hole, to where this was square. And then I could take this and line up that hole with that edge. So that gives me that location. And of course I'll double check that one more time before I weld it, but that should be where that ends up. So that'll take care of these pieces here. The other problem I'm going to have, as I don't know if I mentioned it already, is these pieces. I don't think these are going to work. I'm going to have to come up with something else to make this do what it's supposed to do, because normally this would be much further to the outboard, but with these wheelhouses, that moves them in. And I honestly don't know exactly what bolts to these, but I don't think it's going to work unless that piece gets modified as well. So I'm going to get these lined up and weld them in. All right, I have all of the pieces welded in where they should be, and I'll point out this measurement, 18 1/4 from the inside of the B-pillar, let's say, and this measurement to the front was 10 inches from the flange of the floor pan. So I used the original car, hooked tape on there and pulled, and got 10 inches to the front edge of this. Now, it looks like I got the plates in the back there in the right spot. The panels sit good on those. And I noticed something. I thought that side I did something wrong because there's a gap between the bottom of the panel and that bracket. And I went and grabbed this panel, and apparently there is another piece that goes inside of there that creates kind of a standoff. So I don't know if I don't have that piece for that side or what, but when I put this up in there, now it sits up against that like it should. You can see through the speaker hole. So that's good. Now I'm going to take the seat and see if it'll fit in there. I know that these mini tubs could be a problem, but I'm going to try it, and hopefully it's not an issue, but we'll see. Well, I can't say it is the most robust seating mount that I've ever put in, but it is working. It's caught on that front edge, it's caught on the hooks like it's supposed to be, and I know there's probably some variation between these seats. This seat may be completely original, never been modified, I don't know, but this side I can get in, and it's a snug fit. Now in the corner of the seat, there is a protrusion sticking out that is a problem. On that side, I cannot get it to go in without cutting something or breaking something, and I'm not going to do that. Now, is it going to be a concern? Maybe. I think the fix in general is going to be either modifying the seat. If they get them recovered, they may have to narrow up that one side just a little, or the panel needs to be trimmed to fit around that upper portion of the seat. The lower section's fine. It clears all that. But that corner up there is a bit of a problem. So not much I can do otherwise. The mini tubs, that's the way they're made. I put them in correctly. So we'll just have to deal with that when it comes to final assembly. And of course I'll let anybody know who's going to be working on it. But overall it's not bad, but still it's going to need some help over there. Okay, I did weld in the pieces up on top of the wheelhouses. I was looking at a Detroit Speed video, and they said to put those back on there and basically line them up with where they were with the original car or original wheelhouses. So I don't know exactly how or what interacts with that, but I put them back in line with where they should be. And I also measured, there's a little cutout, and I don't know what sits in there, but measure from that cutout forward to this flange on my original car, and I replicated that. Now the other thing that I looked at was these little plates here, and my understanding is that's part of the fold down seat system. I'm not sure if they're going to be used because this car did not come with a fold down seat, even though it had all these brackets in the original car. The problem we're going to run into, I think, is because of how this width is, and I've heard that you can't use the fold down seat with the mini tubs. I don't know for sure, but at this point we're still considering putting in the factory rear seat. So now that all that stuff is in place, I want to show you why I wanted to address that before I got too far along. Oh, I should point out, I took measurements for that little plate once again, and from the center line of that hole to basically the mount point for the rear bumper, the flat panel or flat part of the tail panel forward, that was 35 1/8, and then the distance between these was 34 3/4 is what I came up with based on the original car. So what I did is I made a center line of the car, and then I measured 17 3/8 and 17 3/8 to split the difference and squared everything up. So it should all be good. And once again, I wanted to take care of those pieces because of that. So had I sprayed on all the epoxy primer and done the undercoating and then realized I needed to weld in those pieces, I would have been in trouble. I would have damaged that finish. So there you can see that one's welded and that one's welded. And the other thing on the mini tubs, the plate that I welded on the inside, same thing. Now the other pieces, it doesn't appear they interact at all with the floor pan, at least not what's exposed. I think some of them get welded behind this brace here for the shocks, and the other one is up here in this area, so it's not a problem. I'm going to continue on trying to get as much of this ready to go as I can, but I've come to the conclusion that I'm not going to have it ready for this video. There's still too much to do as far as masking and prepping all of this to make sure that it's ready. I'm not going to rush this just to get it on a video, so I'm going to have to stop where I'm at and just finish out this video for you. Okay, so like I said, there is too much to do for me to have it ready for this video. I wanted to have everything in primer, it just didn't happen, and I'm not going to rush. I'm not going to try to get things quickly done just to say that I did it and got it on camera. I would rather take my time, take a step back, take a breath, make sure everything is right before I commit to the epoxy and all the other stuff. So again, I apologize for not getting that far along, but I have been working pretty hard on trying to get all this stripped off and make it right. Now, there are some people that may say you don't have to remove that weld-through primer. Research that, because there are different values to the primers that we put on these cars, and weld-through primer is just that. In my opinion, it's meant to be used for the weld-through process. And why dynacorn coats these like this, I don't know. I guess it's just easier for them. You look at other companies, they put on the EDP coating, and I've already shown you stuff like these frame rails right here. You could hit it with a wire wheel and it comes right off. Now it's taking a little more effort to get the weld-through primer off, but I want to make sure that I don't have any conflict with materials when I move forward. So if you have any insight on that and you feel like there's a difference that you want to share with us, by all means, let me know and let me know what you think. I would just rather be on the side of caution, spend some more time and make sure everything is good to go. So I do want to give a shout out. I've got a couple of new patrons this past week, and that's awesome. That helps me a lot. YouTube is still just not, there's no growth for me at this point. And so I want to keep making these videos, and I encourage you to join Patreon. I post videos on there as well, and there's no commercials, no ads, no nothing. I interact with people on Patreon, and I think it's a good thing for all of us. So if you would, take a look at it and see what you think. But as it is, that'll be the end of this video. I'm going to continue finishing up where I'm at right now. I've got some more pieces and parts that I need to get stripped down and ready to go, but that'll prep me for the next video, and that hopefully is dealing more with the epoxy and undercoating and all that sort of stuff, and the seam sealers and all that. So that'll be it for now, and until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.